Speech on the occasion of the killing of 2 government supporters, from The Fascist Coup Against Venezuela by Hugo Chávez, delivered in Caracas on January 5th, 2003. Being profoundly sad and being full of indignation as a Venezuelan, I am addressing all of you. But before making some reflections and conveying my message to all of you, I am going to quote Bolivar, our father liberator. I feel the strength of my soul becoming greater and wider, and matching the scope of dangers always. My doctor has told me that my soul needs to feed itself from dangers to preserve my sanity. So, by creating me, God allowed this thundering revolution to take place, so that I could live immersed in my unique destiny. Simón Bolívar wrote this once, and today I quote him, while understanding the feelings of the Venezuelan people. These thundering images we have seen should raise our souls to face the dangers hovering over the Republic, the dangers and threats that are in store for our homeland. Unfortunately, we have began our year with these events. This is why this evening on January 5th, Sunday, I am addressing good Venezuelan men and women, those who feel the country beating inside them with each hope, with each dream, to express the great sorrow, the deep sadness, the rage we feel every time a Venezuelan dies from violence as a toll of artful calculations, as if the lives of our men and women could be measured in terms of political goals, in terms of sharing out petty powers. I am sure that all Venezuelans agree with this resounding no. The killing of Venezuelans cannot continue to go unpunished. That cannot continue. How many more Venezuelan homes will be mourning until the criminals cease in their efforts to destroy the country? How many more tears? How much more blood? We are not revengeful people. Rather, our acts show our strong intention to pardon, to forgive those who have carried out wrongful acts. I do not harbor hatred in my heart. I only harbor hope that there is rectification, forgiveness to those who have gone wrong. But I should also say something. We must serve justice. The country demands it. The homeland is crying for it. The tears of the relatives of those youths who were assassinated is an urgent call for justice to be served. The expression of sorrow by the father, by the mother, by the relatives is a call for justice. It is a call for dignity. We will find the killers of Jairo Gregorio Moran, 33, and Oscar Gomez, 24, wherever they are. We will catch the criminals, even if they hide beneath rocks, or even if they try to hide behind the smoke of the money of those protecting them, of those who have tried to destroy our country, of the plotters who are trying to strangle the nation by sabotaging the oil industry. They are the same who have attempted 4 coups, those who have seen the end of the benefits from gross interests and sinecures, those who always were above the law and would like nothing to continue doing with Venezuela what they please. They should understand it once and for all. They will not be able to destroy the institutionalized order. They will not be able to attack the Republic. And, above all, and most important, they will not be able to do away with the dreams of this people, who are defending this process with their souls and with their joy, but also with firmness and unselfishness, and even with their own lives. That is a tribute to these Venezuelans who were assassinated, a tribute to those Venezuelans who were killed by the hands of violent and fascist elements. They were Venezuelans like Fabricio Ojeda, who was killed in his cell by members of the Romulo Bentecourt security apparatus, like Alberto Lobera, who was thrown to the sea in chains and returned to us by the sea to denounce his assassination at the hands of those who believed they could destroy his ideas for freedom. Or the Venezuelans, whatever their political background, who were assassinated by henchmen in the south area of Lake Maracaibo just because they dare uphold the law of the land provisions. Or the Venezuelans who were ambushed on April 11th. Or those who were killed on November 12th at the Plaza Bolivar in Caracas, during the events in which metropolitan police officers were presumably involved, or those men and women who were killed on December 6th. I would like to read for you some stanzas by Chilean poet Vicente Huidrobo from his poem entitled Voice of Hope. Man is patient, but not as patient as time. When seen from the edge of night, man is long-suffering. His muscles have been chiseled by the blows of 1,000 years. but Earth is soft and understands and loves him. After so many centuries, and as long as man is amenable, the Earth loves him and asks for a kind of harmony, and longs for a form of fraternal sweetness. It does not want to be covered by tragedies, nor to wander through crimes amid bloody passions. The Earth loves him. May it always be so. It wants his meditative, flower-like might. It wants his happiness as a song needed to march. So may those who destroy misfortune fall, those who close the horizon, those who prevent the singing. May they be buried in the abyss of the night. May they fall, yes, fall, while we unload the dead at the edge of the planet. Vicente Huidrobo, a great Chilean poet. On behalf of the fallen, no matter their creed, no matter where, no matter when, these are poems of the soul to pray to God for an end to these violent events, and so that we are capable, as a people and as a society, to reason, to shake hands, and to advance along the way of justice, which is the way of peace, the only way to peace. The cry is unanimous in the streets of our cities, of our towns, in all the spheres of national life that are not committed to terrorist sabotage, that are not committed to coups. May there be peace. May those who break the law be punished. May there be no rampant impunity that brings about more unnecessary violence. That is being asked for by the citizenry. That is being asked for by the relatives of Jairo Gregorio Moran and Oscar Gomez. That is being asked for by the comrades who stayed with them today, on the day they are planted. As Ali Primera put it, we shall not ignore such commitment to our people and to the memory of our dead. We cannot allow impunity, and those guilty of violence should pay for what they did. Fellow Venezuelans, you can see it was enough that the Metropolitan Police was back in the hands of the Lord Mayor and Henry Vivas for there to be death of more Venezuelans in public rallies. For how long will parts of the Metropolitan Police continue being used to repress the people, to bring mourning to Venezuelan homes? How far can the shamelessness go, the obscure designs of these gentlemen who are using the police force, which should preserve peace and tranquility for the people of Caracas, and which is doing nothing but causing more deaths, instilling more hatred, and cutting off futures like those of these dead young men? And all this is happening with the connivance, with the shameless support of most of the media, and, above all, with the conspiratorial involvement of the owners of private TV networks. This I say before the country and before the world. What a way of twisting the truth. What a way of insulting our intelligence and our ability to make judgments, our right to consider the elements of truth to reach a position. No, they reach it on our behalf. They want to decide for us what the truth is and what Venezuelans should think, and they repeat it not 100 but 1,000 times without considering that they, or at least some of them, also live in this land. They want to divide up the country among themselves, as if Venezuela had not changed, as if we Venezuelans would accept being deprived of our homeland, the homeland of our fathers and grandfathers, the land where our children and grandchildren will and are growing, the land where the children of Jairo Gregorio Moran and Oscar Gomez will grow up without a father. A terrible example of this media terrorism, which has even surprised and stunned the media of the whole world, which has ashamed foreign correspondents because of the coverage of the oil sabotage by the private media. For them, those who sabotage the Venezuelan oil industry in a savage attempt to strangle the homeland are heroes. They are praising those who damage computers and machines the state had entrusted to them, without a thought for the terrible consequences a standstill in the oil industry would have for all Venezuelans and citizens of the world. They did not stop to think, or maybe they did stop but didn't care, about the children who would be left with no schools, the patients who would be left with no hospital care, the elderly, the women and the men who would be left with no food and no electricity, or about Venezuela having no chance at all of meeting its commitments to its citizens and to our foreign clients. Well, these terrorists are being portrayed by the private TV media and most of the press as heroes of the homeland, but they are traitors to the homeland, the pirates who blockaded our coasts, something that had not happened since 1902, are being presented by the media as valiant sailors. They are criminals, saboteurs, and terrorists. Before Venezuelans in the world, I expose them as terrorists who are trying to deprive the people of their reason to exist, their body and their soul, and their hope contained in this good homeland. But Venezuelans can feel safe. It has not been easy, brothers and sisters. It has entailed difficulties we have overcome with the support of thousands of workers who stepped forward to operate the oil industry, who have stayed on the jobs to keep the country's productive muscle working. It has been done by the public transport drivers, by the basic industry workers in Guyana, by all those who have defended the country in a gesture that makes them equal to the greatest deeds of our liberators. There is no doubt in our minds we are conquering darkness. As of today, oil exports have already increased to 1,500,000 barrels a day, and 5 tankers that were rescued are now sailing through our waters and the seas of the world to satisfy energy requirements. Of the 1,200 tanker trucks that are needed for domestic consumption, 780 are rolling throughout the country 24 hours a day. This accounts for almost 70% of what is required, and filling stations continue to pump more and more gas. Thus, we have seen a considerable reduction in gas station lines, and we will bring the situation back to normal soon. The need for gas and gas cylinders, which are used for cooking in 80% of Venezuelan homes, has been met by 60 to 80%. Let the media go on with their lies. Let the media go on with their fabrications. They have said all sorts of things. That there were oil spills in Cardone. Not true. That there were gasoline quality problems. Not true at all. They cannot hide the truth. PDVSA is being purged for the benefit of all Venezuelans. We will see the results of the effort we are making now in the near future. It has not been easy. It will not be easy. The international community has not remained unmoved by these terrorist attempts I have exposed. Friendly countries have generously reached out to us and helped us at this difficult juncture. On behalf of my fellow Venezuelans and of the government of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, I would like to thank the governments and peoples of Colombia, the Dominican Republic, Brazil, the United States of America, Trinidad and Tobago, Curaçao, the European Union, Algeria, Russia, Iran, India, Chile, Canada, Uruguay, Argentina, and Guatemala for their selfless aid. They have eternal friends in us, in this people. In this struggle we are carrying out at present, we have reached the far-reaching decision to begin a thorough restructuring of our company, Petróleos de Venezuela, to make it stronger and more efficient and more responsive to the interests of the nation, and not to those of a small group of privileged peoples who would have liked to keep their sinecures indefinitely, but now have simply been fired and are legally accountable for their wrongdoings and excesses. What kind of people are these who rejoice at the terrorist attacks against the oil industry? What homeland do they believe in when they even regard as a success the fact that our children, who are our future, simply stop going to school as a result of their sabotage? Even UNICEF stated its clear position about the intention of the saboteurs to leave our children with no education, something that, it goes without saying, they will not succeed in. Concerning the saboteurs' fruitless efforts against private and public education, UNICEF representative to Venezuela, Dr. D'Amelio, pointed out that no crisis justifies the violation of the rights of children, and it is proper in times of crisis that society as a whole sees to it that children are not the ones who pay for the consequences of the decisions made by adults. So far, she denounced, 30% of classes have been lost, and this is affecting education quality and places Venezuelan boys and girls in a disadvantageous position compared to their counterparts in other countries in Latin America and the world. UNICEF points out that Venezuela has ratified the International Conventions on the Rights of the Child, and, in this framework, it commits itself to giving top priority to children above any other interests. All this is also restated by the Law on the Protection of Children and Adolescents. Thus, it is impressive, it says, to have a greater commitment and willingness from everyone. Everybody should guarantee the rights of all children. In this sense, parents, tutors, teachers, and private and public school principals are also responsible. The saboteurs have tried to deprive the population of such things as the right to education, the right to free transit, to truthful information, to free economic activity, as provided in our national constitution. It is they who are violating the fundamental rights enshrined in our Magna Carta, thus breaking the law. This Bolivarian government has respected the rights of all citizens, and we will continue respecting them. But we will no longer allow small groups who have ganged up to attack those rights and the basic right we Venezuelans have to live in peace. We will implement strongly, and so I state it, the principle of authority the Constitution and laws have bestowed upon us to ensure peace and tranquility in the Republic. We also urge other levels of public power, especially the citizens' power and the judiciary, to uphold and enforce laws for the good of the Republic. In one of his human poems, Peruvian poet Cesar Ballejero wrote this: "Today I love life much less, but I always love life." We love life, but much less so when the mourning for the death of Venezuelans hits us hard, when it hurts deep in our hearts. We feel an angry sadness because two Venezuelans who deserve to see more dawns and to continue living with their loved ones are being buried today by their friends, by the people who will never forget them. But we always love life because defeating the saboteurs will be a way of remembering them forever. Going forward with this project to rebuild the country will be a way of inscribing their names in history, putting the refineries which were sabotaged by the terrorists back into operation, defending the right of our children to go to school, defeating hunger and poverty are ways of keeping them here with us. Thus, on this evening of Sunday, January 5th, I am addressing good Venezuelan men and women, the great majority, those of us who dream of a beautiful homeland. By the way, yesterday and today I was checking things up and getting in touch directly with the managers of the new PDVSA, and I have some comments for you about that. I want to congratulate you all. Thousands of men and women are recovering spaces, reactivating spaces, getting our oil industry back on its feet. For example, yesterday I talked with the new managers in charge of everything related to ship designations, ship contracts, and international trade, and I should tell you that this sphere of our oil business has continued to improve considerably. Of course, there are still myriad problems as a result of the biggest sabotage that has been recorded in Venezuelan history, and certainly there is not a previous example, there is no precedent of a group of Venezuelans who, acting as a fifth column, acting as an occupation army, have betrayed their own country and have gone on with the sabotage operation they started against Venezuela, something I have defined as a stab to the heart of the homeland. Traitors to the homeland. That is the way in which their names and faces will go down in history. 500 years will pass, and future generations will still know their faces and names as those of assassins and traitors to the homeland. Venezuelan history has no precedent of a media operation and of terrorism, violence, and manipulation of such enormity as the one we Venezuelans are resisting heroically. But thus will the owners of those media be remembered, thus will those media be remembered, marked forever in political history, in social history, in the history of Venezuela. Yesterday, for example, the new General Operations Manager in PDVSA East, which covers all the eastern part of the country, told me that the eastern refinery is operating at over 80% of its capacity, which is considered to be an optimal level, and they are refining 75,000 barrels of crude a day. This has been a supreme effort. The eastern refinery is operating at its full capacity already. This percentage, below 100%, is considered as normal for refinery maintenance reasons. Gasoline supply in the eastern region can be considered as normal, with some ups and downs. And very important, and this is an example set by the East for the rest of the country, for the West, for the South, and for the center of Venezuela, the People's Control Brigades have been activated. For example, in El Tigre and in Anaco, there were, as of yesterday, 29 People's Control Brigades. These are 10 or 15-member groups who have organized themselves as brigades to defend the oil industry as they patrol pipelines, watch the refineries, watch the oil fields, and keep their eyes open. I call upon you to follow this example here in the center of the country, there in the south, and there in the west of the country. Fuel should be controlled also. These brigades are in gas stations, helping to control fuel, to fight speculation, black marketeering, and the abuses by some gas station owners that should be exposed. They should be exposed because they have a license and it can be taken away from them in the same way they got it. We have already taken away the licenses from some stations and from some managers who took part in the sabotage, because the license will be taken away from those who do not want to work. We will create people's cooperatives to distribute the gas stations, the transportation lines, the fuel. These will be the people themselves, together with the armed forces and the workers of new PDVSA, the patriotic PDVSA. They will be no match for us. One day, they will finally realize that they will be no match for the morale and the strength of the Venezuelan people. Concerning production there in the East, regardless of all the lies being spread every day by private TV channels, which are being repeated by many radio stations and almost all newspapers in the country, and regardless of so many lies, this is the truth. I have my command post here and talk every day with the generals in the battlefield, and when I say generals, I am referring to generals of the armed forces, admirals of the armed forces, and the managers who are the civilian generals. Also, and more than once, I talk with privates, with non-commissioned officers, with mid-level technicians, to get reports from people at various levels and have clear and accurate information to give it to the country, as I am doing this evening, and as I will continue to do in the days to come, and as it should be, on state radio and television. In the East, normal operations began in Monagas and in Zoateguay. As of yesterday, we had stocks in Monagas amounting to 2.7 million barrels of crude and full production, and this started almost from zero. Our production was almost nil, and now, in Monagas alone, we were until yesterday, producing 300,000 barrels a day. I will give you an example of how those traitors to the homeland sabotage systems. A manager of the new PDVSA, a patriotic manager, was telling me that it is known from all the investigation which is being carried out that these people, before going and leaving the refineries and command posts with no management, sabotage the systems. But they didn't just sabotage them with a hope and a prayer. They sabotaged the systems in such a manner that they could wait and be ready to come back in a week because, actually, both the political and media conspirators, the traitorous managers, had estimated that I would go before Christmas. They were wrong once again, as they were in April, and they will be wrong over and over again. But let me give the example I was going to give to all Venezuelans, so that they realize how far the criminal intentions of these people went. You know that all these systems, all the industry, are computerized and systematized. There, in the East, for example, our technicians discovered the following. The sabotage consisted in changing the adjustment points in the control systems. A variable had been introduced into the computers of the control systems they have there so that temperature in the boilers or in the plants does not rise above 600 degrees, which is the temperature ceiling. Above 600 degrees, the plant reaches a dangerous level. Well, these gentlemen not only abandoned their posts, but changed the adjustment points before leaving. That is, in this example I am giving you, they raised the ceiling from 600 degrees to 800 degrees centigrade. What would have happened if our patriotic and well-trained technicians had not checked these control systems and adjustment points well, and had started the systems and valves and all the operating systems? When the temperature had gone above 600 degrees and reached 800, there would have been a disaster, an explosion. Don't you remember that the announcers who tell the country about terrorism every day were saying, at the beginning of this new coup, now in a new form, because this is also a coup d'etat, and we are witnessing a new attempt at a coup d'etat, that most certainly there would be accidents, that most certainly there would be explosions, because, they said, the technicians and workers that stayed there did not have the skills, and that the government would be responsible for the loss of human lives and the damage. They themselves had set up, there in the computers, the mechanisms to provoke explosions and physical damage, and damage to security and to the life of workers. You can appreciate the criminal act they have committed. This cannot go unpunished. The government I lead is working hard and doing everything it should do. I want to say this to the Venezuelan people. It is investigating, acting, and pressing charges. What we Venezuelans are asking is that state institutions work, that the power of the citizenry works as it should, that they act in time and with efficiency and courage, so that the law is enforced, so that we have the rule of law here, so that the judiciary acts in time and with courage, so that justice is served and all these deeds that threaten peace in the country do not go unpunished. Everyone is accountable. This is an example of how they made preparations for accidents in the systems to cause explosions. Fortunately, there has not been a single accident so far, even though they have forecast and announced those accidents. They said the ship would blow up. Yesterday, on the TV channels, as every day, they were saying that there had been a fire in El Palito because smoke was coming out of it, that the El Palito refinery would explode, that people should leave the area, that it was the government's fault. And it turns out that I spoke today to the new manager of this patriotic PDVSA that we now have in El Palito, and he told me that the smoke is completely normal. And the people who were saying it was a fire and that there had been an explosion know it is normal. It is because we are now starting up the refinery, because we are starting the plants, and that black smoke that has begun to come out there from an El Palito plant is nothing but a product of circulating fluid used to fire up the refinery. They are just burning diesel. We are conducting pre-firing up tests. Thus, diesel circulates, and it is burned, a completely normal procedure. The terrorists even said, in a warmongering and terrorist message broadcast by all the media to the world, that it was toxic smoke, that there had been fatalities. What's more, many Moron and El Palito dwellers who have grown used to seeing and smelling that smoke for a long time told me that they went to the plant, to the front of the plant, to express their support to those who are already making pre-firing up tests in the refinery. Thus, instead of being bad news, that black smoke is great and wonderful news. It is the outcome of round-the-clock work by hundreds and thousands of people who have had to go down to the tiniest detail, to the smallest screw in the plants, the pipes and the compressors, because sabotage was all over the place. Well, next week, which begins tomorrow, the production over there in the east is estimated to reach 1 million barrels per day now. That's good news. Patriotic PDVSA is recovering. I think this conflict was necessary to purge PDVSA, to carry out, as the people say in the streets and the people ask for in the streets, the cleansing of PDVSA. The time has come. The Bible says so. The Bible is the Word of God. To everything there is a season under heaven. So, there was a group of people conspiring in the armed forces, etc. Well, the day came when we purged the armed forces. So, PDVSA, a corrupt, anti-national elite, was practicing sabotage and doing this? The time has come. We are purging PDVSA, and that is how change processes take place, how deep transformations take place. All the problems cannot be solved at the same time. That is why I guarantee the Venezuelan people that my government, our government, will continue to assume its responsibility staunchly and courageously, and progressively and gradually we will continue to further the revolution. That is the only way. There is no turning back. We have burned the bridges behind us. There is no turning back. We will continue consolidating and furthering this revolution. That is the only way. There is no other. I then invite all Venezuelans to continue making the great effort we are making to consolidate that dream, to keep it beautiful for our children. Well then, these are good pieces of news, aren't they? In Anzoátegui, production has also been a bit lower, but it has been recovering. In Anzoátegui, production is less than in Monagas, and on December 31st, we gained control of the tank yard of the office in El Tigre. Who was over there? Some managers doing sabotage, some managers who exerted pressure on their workers so that they would not come to work. We went there with the armed forces, the National Guard, the Army, some new managers, a prosecutor, a judge, opened an inquiry, and bingo, the managers were gone, and this will be followed by the corresponding legal actions. I have asked all the new managers for a detailed report, with witnesses, with prosecutors, with the armed forces, DISIP, the Military Intelligence Directorate. I have just held a meeting with all of them tonight, an in-depth investigation with the corresponding evidence. Because this cannot be left at that, this cannot go unpunished. What they have tried to do is break the backbone of the country. Well then, the managers were changed. I salute the new management over there in the field office, tank yard. Later, on January 1st, we seized control of the rest of the operations of the Anzoátegui area. The managers were also changed. We have a new manager in the Southern District. Congratulations! And he is a patriot, and they came to work day and night, relentlessly. I called them today, and they were working. It was 8 p.m., and they were working. Of course, many operators and workers who were being pressured and threatened by these former managers doing sabotage have now come to work under the orders of the new authorities. And I want to make a call to all the PDVSA workers in the tank yard, in the refineries, who had been blackmailed and threatened by the managers we are charging. It is time. Come and put yourself under the orders of the new managers, and let us all work in order to quickly recover the optimal level of our oil enterprise. Well, do you know what these saboteurs and traitors to their homeland did over there in Anzoátegui? They damaged the power input of 120 oil wells. Everything involved in the electric input, transformers, cables. They dismantled it. Billions of dollars is the direct material loss they caused our oil industry. I said it a few days ago. We have to be ready to begin the year, as we have, with severe economic difficulties. But this is not going to stop us either. Certainly not. I am the man of difficulties, said Bolivar, and I say today, we are the people of difficulties. The harder our lot is, the bigger our heart and the soul of the Venezuelan people becomes, and the greater our demonstration to the world of our ability, of our love for our homeland, and for the whole world. Concerning our ships, we are also continuing to improve. Several cabotage ships are already on the move. Yesterday, I was informed of normal wharf operations at El Palito by the new patriotic manager of the El Palito refinery, which was, as you know, sabotaged. Yesterday afternoon, there were 2 ships at the wharf. One, the Marshal Yukov, loading crude oil, loading 350,000 barrels of crude oil. It is already finished. Where is that crude headed for? For Barbados. The Pelin Leon was unloading yesterday. It has already finished unloading 130,000 barrels of leaded gasoline for the central part of the country. That's it for wharf operations. There are no more problems with the tugboats, nor with the tugboat captains, nor with the pilot. They had sabotaged all that. Supply and pumping. The supply and pumping is working normally from El Palito to Yagua and toward Barquisimetro. They had also sabotaged all the supply and pumping systems. And yesterday afternoon, the crude and vacuum units were started up. What does this mean? These are the main distillation plants. They have been stopped since December 7th. They have been abandoned by the managers and also sabotaged. Congratulations to the new manager. To the technicians, to all the civilian and military workers, to all of those who have put their soul into it. I am certain that there are people there, both civilians and military, who have gone without sleep for up to 4 days, sometimes without eating, deeply involved in the solution of 1,000 problems due to sabotage. Well then, the crude and vacuum units of the El Palito refinery that had been stopped since December 7th were started up, I repeat. And what will the startup of these plants allow us to do now? We are going to begin producing airplane fuel right there now. No fuel, airplane fuel, was being produced there since the sabotage began. We are going to begin producing diesel and fuel oil, which is the electric power fuel. This is destined for the power plants. You know that these thermoelectric plants are powered by oil to generate electricity. Well, they also wanted to sabotage the electric power. Treason to the homeland! They are criminals! This is a crime against humanity that cannot go unpunished, no matter what. They have to go down in history for what they are. Well, the load for other units will also be produced. Downstream, vacuum gas oil, which is a raw material used to produce gasoline. Downstream, when we start up soon, the other conversion and treatment plants. Well then, with all this process, the El Palito refinery is expected to be working full steam in approximately 2 weeks, producing 50,000 barrels of gasoline daily and processing crude oil. We have gasoline there at El Palito for several days, even more so now with the arrival of the Pelin Leon, and we are solving thousands of problems. In Paraguaná, I also spoke to the new patriotic manager of the Paraguaná refinery, the largest in the world, by the way. I also greeted his wife and must send his daughter Yvonne an autographed constitution. I will send it to you, Yvonne. This patriotic manager of Paraguaná informed me, among other things, the following. I speak to them on the phone for up to 1 hour and I take notes. This is my working notebook of the Miraflores Oil Command. Well, I'm a major in the oil battle now too. This is some news. As of today, the 5th, and tomorrow, the 6th, the proper level will be reached. Sufficient gas is beginning to be sent from Zulia to Paraguaná. That is one of the reasons why the refinery is stopped, for lack of enough gas in volume and pressure for that large refinery to start up. This refinery is a lot more complex than that of El Palito, and even much more complex than that of the East, the Puerto La Cruz refinery. Now listen to what the patriotic manager in Paraguaná told me. The saboteurs also did their bit over there, but one of the things that most impressed me was this. When a refinery or part of it is going to be stopped, for maintenance or any other reason, as a safety measure, a process known as displacement must be done. That is, to clean the pipes, to get everything that was in the pipes and in the deposits out, so that nothing is left in there. Well, these people did not do this, and there were pipes and deposits full of hydrocarbons, some even full of asphalt. He told me, for example, that we have 3 asphalt tanks. The asphalt was hot. When the refinery was stopped, they turned off the power, the gas, and the asphalt gradually became solid. So now we have a number of tanks filled with solid asphalt. What do you think of that? What a crime! Now, with a lot of calmness and patience, and observing the safety measures, we have to begin to heat this asphalt so that it will again have the consistency required to flow through the pipes and come out as a product. But it was left in the deposits. It was left there and solidified in 3 tanks. Each tank has 80,000 barrels of asphalt, like a rock. What marvels this group of traitors has done! That is why it cannot be left at that. The former managers of the plant have to pay for this. This is what jurors call objective responsibility, and later they must pay for their subjective responsibility. This is the same as if the commander of a battalion, even if it is out of negligence, even when it is not done intentionally, as in this case, due to neglect, has a depot full of weapons explode. There is objective responsibility there for the mere fact that he was the commander of that unit. He should have inspected it, taken measures. He did not do it, then he is responsible. Then those managers who abandon the plants, even if tomorrow they may say, when a court summons them, because justice has to be done, they will have to respond to justice, even when they say, "No, I did not know. I left." No. You are responsible because you were entrusted with the management of a refinery, the largest in the world to boot. They are irresponsible, criminals, traitors to their homeland. That is what they are. Well, they left hydrocarbons, oil, gasoline, kerosene, and chemicals lying all about in that refinery, in the pipes, deposits, and tanks. All of this is being cleaned up step by step, millimeter by millimeter, and soon that refinery, the largest in the world, will also be working, although its process is much more complex. Even in Cardone, an old service has begun operating to use diesel instead of gas, to begin to start up units within a few days, especially the distillation primaries, as well as those in El Palito to produce gas, low-octane gasoline, kerosene, diesel, and fuel oil. It is estimated that by January 15th they should have started. That is an estimate. I will continue to inform you and the Minister of Energy and Mines and the President of PDVSA. We will continue to inform you step by step, because this is a heroic task, and we must especially acknowledge these patriotic managers, these patriotic workers, the vast majority, the patriotic soldiers who have borne on their shoulders the oil heart of the homeland and have saved the homeland. The wharf over in Punto Fijo is under control. In the last 10 days, 600 barrels of gasoline have left by ship and 300,000 barrels of crude oil have left for Curacao from Paraguaná. And we still have 3 million barrels of crude stored that will continue to leave port. We have broken the blockade. They had us blockaded. 14,000 barrels of gasoline per day have left on tank trucks also from Paraguaná. We are sending it by water and by land. 100 tank trucks per day have been leaving from Paraguaná for different parts of Venezuela. 20,000 barrels of jet fuel have left for Catia La Mar, that is, airplane fuel, and domestic propane gas for Caranero. 3,500 barrels, that is, liquid gas, what you are lacking. Their area still, lots of families cooking with wood. This people is amazing. A few days ago, a woman, a humble housewife, told me, "Chavez, we are using firewood to cook, but it doesn't matter, son. Don't surrender. If we have to cook with firewood for 2 years, for 20 years, we will cook with firewood. But this dignity of our homeland, no one can take away from us." How great you are, compatriots! I love and admire you more every day. They also told me today, this was today, that is, today, Sunday the 5th, that in El Palito, with the startup of the crude and vacuum plants that I have already mentioned, the first distillation process has been activated, and I have the data here, given to me by Pedro Jimenez, a patriot that is over there in the refinery, that we have begun to produce now 14,000 barrels of Jet A1, airplane fuel, and nothing was being produced there for almost a month. 9,000 barrels of naphtha. This is almost gasoline. It is the base for gasoline. 31,000 barrels of fuel oil for power plants, 28,000 barrels of diesel, and 30,000 barrels of BGO, which is the base for other products. In total, with the startup of the crude and vacuum plants in the El Palito refinery, we are processing 110,000 barrels of crude daily, which comes from Guafita, Apure, and Barinas. Well, a great part of the production was also stopped. We have now begun to reactivate the system. We are refining here and are continuing to bring in more crude. At El Palito, we still have to start up the catalytic fractionation and cracking plant. I'm almost a technician already. The ships at El Palito, I have already said it, the Marshal Yukov and the Pilin Leon finished their operations without any trouble. But, besides, another ship has arrived at El Palito, the Normandie. It is unloading 250,000 barrels of unleaded gasoline. It has come from Trinidad. Thank you, Prime Minister Manning and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. 150,000 barrels of gasoline will be unloaded at El Palito. We bartered our crude oil for unleaded gasoline from Trinidad, of which 150,000 barrels are earmarked to Caronero. A tanker, Normandie, from Trinidad is sailing to Caronero. This boat will finish unloading at El Palito today, before it heads for Caronero. Today at 1:30 p.m., I spoke with the patriotic manager of the Western region. I am finally able to talk to the PDVSA management. In the past, I could hardly talk to any of them. There wasn't any communication channel. The operations in the Western region, that is, the entire Western region, are 75% secured. This patriotic manager told me so today. And since he is a patriot, he will not be telling me lies. The lies come from others, the same who are waging a dirty war of propaganda, terrorism, and violence. The truth is that 75% of the labor force is operational in the West. The liquefied gas supply has recovered from the sabotage of which it was a target. The production and distribution of the liquefied gas that is being piped to the residential sector in San Lorenzo, Bacaquero, Maracaibo, Cabimas, and Maras are 84% normalized. This is liquid gas, domestic gas, which is piped into your homes. The distribution of the LPG cylinders has been impacted by the yet insufficient LPG production in the Western region. The LPG is being brought from the east, i.e., from across the country. Next week, however, the fractioning plant in Ulay, on the eastern banks of the lake, will be ready to produce 80% of their total bottled LPG required in the Western region. From an output of less than 100,000 barrels a day 10 days ago, our crude production is now 250,000 barrels a day in the Western region. We are ready to produce up to 800,000 barrels a day in the next few days. The ceiling is 1.3 million barrels a day. These reports I wanted to share with you underpin our optimism over this oil battle we are currently waging for the benefit of Venezuela. Today I received yet another delegation from a friendly OPEC member, Iran. President Mohammad Khatami sent a special envoy and a team of experts who are assessing the situation. I want to convey to the Venezuelan people a message from our brother, President Mohammad Khatami, who is familiar to all of us. And I quote, "Anything you need, Chavez, for your people that we can provide, you can count on Iran to cooperate in the full recovery of our oil industry." Yesterday it was Algeria, today it was Iran. The day before yesterday it was Brazil and Trinidad and Tobago, all friendly countries. Venezuela is not alone. Venezuela has a handful of brothers and sisters around the world. Entire peoples are rising, praying, and weeping for Venezuela. A good share of the poor in this world have pinned their hopes on the Bolivarian revolution that is being carried forward against all hazards by the people, armed forces, and society of Bolivarian Venezuela. Today we buried 2 Venezuelans who were murdered yesterday. Jairo Gregorio Moran, a craftsman and resident of Avenida Panteon, Altagracia, who identified himself with the Bolivarian Revolution, is survived by 2 children, 2 years and 4 years old. Some of the bullets that we witnessed being shot by officers of the Metropolitan Police and other individuals, who are easy to identify by the prosecutors and judges, hit and killed Jairo Gregorio Moran. Oscar Gomez, 24, also identified with the Bolivarian Revolution, went out unarmed, carrying only his morality and his constitution. He was married. I convey my condolences to his family, his wife, son, parents, brothers, and sisters. He is also survived by a 1-year-old son, Oscar Moises. God bless him. We will be looking after them all. His father delivered a message of both pain and courage to the nation yesterday. He, Oscar, was the coordinator of the Fifth Republic movement in San Antonio de los Altos. By the way, his brother, an army lieutenant, is one of those young men who are fighting alongside their people and serving their homeland at Fort Murachi in the state of Táchira. The worst horror occurred last night in front of the funeral home where the bodies of these 2 Venezuelans lay in state. The Metropolitan Police caused it. They may come up with some story, but their actions have no justification. You saw some of the images. They tossed tear gas right in front of the funeral home. Of course, I immediately instructed the Minister of the Interior, the National Guard, and the Minister of Defense to disarm this police force. An investigation has been opened, and the police command post for that area has been seized. The perpetrators are under investigation. This was the last straw. These Metropolitan Police officers showed no respect for the sorrow of the family members, friends, and people in general who had gathered there. Anyway, we reserve the right to pursue against the Metropolitan Police Force any other action that may be applicable by the national state and government and civilian and military law enforcement bodies acting under the law. We have already taken an initial action that apparently failed to teach a lesson. While this intervention was fully in place, and you, the people, are eyewitnesses, marches and demonstrations were held here and there, but no one was killed or injured. As soon as the previous authorities were reinstated as a result of a Supreme Court decision, we have seen them again, their helmets on as they trample on the people with their weapons of war and shoot at close range. We cannot leave this situation just like that. You can rest assured that I will take my share of responsibility and I will make the necessary decisions. A meeting will be held tomorrow for this purpose. Today, we held 5 meetings in which we have reviewed the laws and the Constitution and considered the necessary actions. You should harbor no doubt. We will take those actions. No one will destroy our country. No one will snatch our dream of a homeland. Be sure, Bolivarian soldier Hugo Chávez will do everything within his powers. I know that I can rely on the formidable and unrestricted support from the vast majority of Venezuelans and the armed forces. I will act as I must at the right time. My right hand, much less my left hand, will not shake when I make the decisions required to make sure that the Venezuelan constitution and laws will finally prevail. As I said, since this task is not only my responsibility, I call upon the representatives of other public powers, the legislature and judiciary, and other public institutions to take the measures required to safeguard peace in the Republic, the rights of the people, the laws, and our territory. Territory, people, and laws are the 3 basic components of the Venezuelan state. We cannot let our territory, laws, and population be trampled upon. However, they are being violated by these plotters who are intent on destroying not only Chávez, but also our republic. They are intent on destroying the Venezuelan state and giving it to powerful, multinational interests that have always had their eye on Venezuela. Its oil reserves, one of the largest in the world, as well as its gold, aluminum, water, and land. But they will be unsuccessful. This is the birthplace of the liberator of the Americas, and we are made of the clay patriots and liberators are made of. There will be no match for us, the liberators of the Americas. We are here to secure the freedom of this land. My brothers and sisters, the struggle is and will be tough. for we have dared remove masks. We have dared tell the truth and act accordingly. We have not only spoken, but also taken action consistent with our Bolivarian ideology and our revolution enshrined in this Constitution. No one will deter us from this path. I call our people to unity, togetherness, faith, and trust. I call on you to fight for our peace, our future, and against the terrorists, no matter what they call themselves and no matter where they are. I am once again at the forefront to lead this battle for Venezuela. Apparently, I was born to fight for my homeland. Before I conclude and say goodbye to you all, I recall a soldier who reminded me of Bolivar's mandates that, and I quote, "When the homeland calls, even the crying of mothers falls silent." End of quote. By the way, I recommend this book written by Nestor Francia, Puente Yaguno, Hablan las Víctimas. Puente Yaguno, The Victims Speak. Look at this picture. He shows a picture from the book. It's similar to yesterday's images, the same characters, the same helmets, and the same weapons shooting the people at close range. This cannot and will not go on. My life is committed to that end. I have been given this book, and I will say goodbye here. It's a great biography of a great fighter who said, "I have a dream." Martin Luther King Jr. is a martyr for all of us, black, white, yellow, or red, who are fighting for the people's dignity, equality, peace, and justice. In some pages, I read the following. Martin Luther King Jr. was talking about Jesus, the King of Peoples, the Lord of Venezuela, Jesus my commander, the Jesus of Bethlehem, the Jesus of Nazareth, the Jesus of the cross, the Jesus who rose from the dead, Jesus the Redeemer. Martin Luther King Jr. was a Christian. We love Christ more and more every day. And let me tell you this, I understand Christ, his passion and love more and more every day. I am more Christian and praise the Lord, my Commander-in-Chief, every day. Before I say goodbye, I will read this, and I quote, Jesus knew that his disciples, and hear me out, for this is the word of the Lord for us, his disciples. It's an order dating back 2,000 years that is being given to us, disciples of Christ, who are fighting for him and his ideas and his dreams. Would be confronted by a difficult and hostile world where they will clash with the recalcitrant politicians and the uncompromising protectors of the old order. Jesus knew that they would encounter cold and arrogant men whose hearts had become a heart in the long winter of traditionalism. Aware of all this, he told them, "Go, I am sending you out like lambs among wolves," and gave them a formula for action. Listen to this. Lambs among wolves. And he went on to advise them to be as shrewd as snakes, but as innocent as doves. It's hard to imagine a person who could, simultaneously, have the characteristics of both a snake and a dove. But this is what Jesus expects from us. We must be like a snake and a dove at the same time. We must combine the toughness of a snake with the peaceful sweetness of a dove. We must be strong in spirit, but tender at heart. If we have the qualities of a snake, but lack the qualities of a dove, we will be cold, wicked, and selfish. If we have the qualities of a dove, but not the snake, we will be sentimental, anemic, and weak. So we must combine both. And Martin Luther King Jr. closed by saying as follows, and I quote, "As blacks, we must combine a strong spirit with a tender heart if we are to move positively toward the goal of freedom and justice." End of quote. Today, I rephrase this great martyr and say that if we want a homeland for our children, then, as Venezuelans, Bolivarians, and revolutionaries, we must combine a strong spirit with a tender heart. Good night, dear friends. Whew. This guy likes the sound of his own damn voice. Holy crap.